And we're back with another edition of Breaking Bet. Welcome to the program. We're handicapping a great Friday night slate and the College Diamond. And I'm here with my guy, Doug Ziefel, as usual. Before we get into the Friday night slate, we got to be taking a look at what we've seen on this Thursday. And I welcome in my guy, Doug Ziefel. First of all, how we doing, Dougie Buckets?
We are great because Thursday night we are here. Thursday night has turned out better than we could have planned.
So I think, before we talk about what we're looking at for tomorrow, I think we got to address what we saw this evening. And let's start with the Arkansas Razorbacks. We were all over this game. On the program last night, I think we handicapped this absolutely perfectly. Every single angle we had came home, and you were laying minus 180 with them. It got all the way out to minus 200, even minus 210 in some spots. And, we talked about Arkansas with Hagen Smith. He was absolute nails. Once again, Doug, 6 innings, shutout, 12 strikeouts. The Razorbacks win 1-0, but they're also getting contributions from Will McIntyre through 2 clean innings in the 7th and 8th. And then Gabe Gackle, the freshman, picks up his 5th save with a 1-2-3 inning in the 9th. The under at 10.5 was a no sweat as the Razorbacks win 1-0. And my angle of Auburn just getting too many runs at home with the 2.5 run line was also a hit. What was your thoughts on Hagen Smith and this Arkansas win this evening?
Yeah, what else can you say? He's been absolutely electric. He's been the best arm in the country since his first start. And he is the guy to back on Friday nights going forward. Like we said, we laid a minus 180 price. And the way Hagen Smith is pitching, you're going to wind up even probably having to lay him over $2. Maybe not. It depends on conference opponents, but he's a guy that's going to be priced heavily from here on forward because this was a road start, too, to where he went up to minus 200 here. But he's worth every penny right now.
It's worth noting that Auburn actually got swept last week against Vanderbilt. Their offense was a complete no-show. And to me, this was a little bit trap-ish because the Tigers are a capable team that can score. And they had a good starter going in Connor McBride. He pitched really well, only allowed 1 home run to the freshman Aloy, the transfer Aloy. And I think, this is a game where every time Hagen Smith is going, it's just hard not to back him. And we talked about how we were looking a lot more towards the home teams on game 1. And, with the progression Hagen Smith has, he has 62 strikeouts in 29 innings so far this year. I just don't know how you can look at him and realistically not think that he's going to be the first pitcher off the board unless Chase Burns keeps doing what he's doing. So that was a great start to our weekend, cashing the Razorbacks in game 1. But Doug, we're underway here with Texas A&M and Mississippi State. We're in the bottom of the 7th, 2 outs. Aggies are up 6-2. It was a really good start for Mississippi State's fill-in Friday guy, Evan Sierre, after Nate Dome, their original Friday guy, has been battling an injury. We're not sure when he's back. Other than a leadoff home run, he was great, Doug. Ryan Prager for A&M has been pretty strong as well. Even at minus 195, the Aggies so far look like they're in a good position to try and close this one out. What did you see from Mississippi State maybe in order to look at them for a Friday and Saturday possible win?
Well, really, we touched on this last night, and the pitching here is going to slightly sway back in the direction of Mississippi State. I'm not going to say they have an edge, though. The Aggies' rotation is due for some regression through the rest of the weekend here. But really, in tonight's matchup, you were kind of handicapping the bats and knowing that this was going to be a lot of Mississippi State's bullpen tonight, which is how it's played out. The Aggies have kind of opened this up as the game's gone along. But with their 2 and 3 guys going, who are much more solid than Ciari, there's definitely going to be some value on the Bulldogs moving through the weekend here.
I think it's definitely worth noting this game is 6-2 right now. It is not even reflective of how close this game has really been. Gavin Grahovic, the freshman for A&M, who's one of the 5 best freshmen in the country, he's carried this Aggie offense. He has a grand slam and a solo shot. He has 5 of the 6 runs batted in this evening. So I think moving forward, A&M, we did address this last night, how on paper their offense looks good, but it's really been carried by their top 3 guys. Their 1 through 3 hitters might be the best in the country in terms of the trio at the top of a lineup with Gavin Grahovic, Jace Lavalette, and Braden Montgomery. But the bottom of the lineup, or even 4 through 9, hasn't been that good. It's very hit or miss. The pitching has been good, but like we talked about, they're due for a regression. And now we have Mississippi State coming in here, played a pretty solid game so far on Thursday night. Just really 1 or 2 mistakes. And we're going to have Cal Steven tomorrow, and then my guy Durangelo Sencha, the switch pitcher, on Saturday. I definitely think there's a good chance that Mississippi State should take at least one of those. If they ended up coming back after a Thursday night loss and took the series, it wouldn't surprise me. So I'm going to be curious to see where this line opens up tomorrow. Obviously, the game is still going on at this very moment at 10:06 p.m. Eastern time. So there's going to be no line probably until, I would say, after midnight Eastern time. But I'm definitely looking at the Bulldogs moving forward for the rest of the weekend. So now let's get into what we're looking at for tomorrow's slate. We got to start it off with our Duke Blue Devils here. They're out to -190 at NC State. It's worth noting that Duke opened up at -160 this afternoon. I actually tweeted that out, and 5 minutes later, it moved out to -175. So there's been some action on the Blue Devils over the last 5 hours or so. Where is the cutoff point for you to lay this number with Duke on the road against an NC State team that is pretty solid in a good ACC opponent at home?
Yeah, for me, it's right here. Credit to you for getting this before the massive steam move, which is honestly earlier than we've seen a lot of steam moves this season. To see a 30-cent move within the day before really has been pretty much earlier than how the market's really been moving. A lot of movement will probably be, game day morning usually. But yeah, right here at 190, even with Santucci on the mound, it's too much for me here. Like you said, the Wolfpack, they're much better than they're being given credit for here. Their lineup outslugged Georgia Tech last week, and their pitching's been able to do enough. This is definitely a spot where it's going to be Wolfpack or nothing for me right now.
So I'm actually not feeling Duke straight up at -190. I would say 175 was probably my cutoff point for the reasons you just said. NC State is a very capable offense. I think it's their pitching that has really been Jekyll and Hyde. One day they'll have Sam Highfill, who I think is throwing tomorrow against Santucci, come out for 7 shutout innings. And then the next day, one of their other starters will come in, give up 6 runs over 4 innings. And I think for me, we could take advantage of this movement. I would expect -190 to probably be closer to -215 come game time tomorrow. In that case, we might get NC State on a 2.5 run line. And in a similar situation to the Arkansas-Auburn game that we handicapped yesterday for this evening, I would say if we're getting 2.5 on NC State, even against Santucci, I think I'd probably have to fire it and try to see if I could pull a middle with a Duke money line and NC State +2.5, because I do think the Wolfpack are going to be a handful today. Ultimately, I expect Duke to pull this one out, Doug, but I don't think that they're going to blow them out. The thing is, the Blue Devils are coming off a series loss against Clemson, one where they should have won. Clemson's no pushover, right? But I really think that this is one where the Blue Devils need to get this Friday night victory, get back on track, and push towards being one victory away to get the series and get themselves back on track.
Yeah, and one last note on this matchup too, Johnny, is this goes back to our conference home team theory here. You know, the Wolfpack, they're home at here, and if they get 2.5 runs, that's the angle that I'm going to take as well. As long as it's not, overly juiced. Sometimes you're going to see these run lines 135, 140, but the Wolfpack. The Wolfpack's crowd are definitely going to be out Friday night, especially how Duke has built themselves up early on this year. I feel like this is a big game for them early on in the conference season.
Where is the parlay in your opinion? So you're not taking Duke straight, but is this still a viable parlay leg? Our guy Crutch, shout out Crutch. He's going to be coming on the podcast not next week, the following week, and he's got me thinking here. Santucci, Yasavage, parlay, Duke, ECU. We're going to get to the ECU game in a little bit, but are you feeling Duke in a parlay leg if you're not going to play it straight up at minus 190?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely a strong leg. Santucci is deserving of a price around this area. And obviously, if you're believing in the market being efficient enough, you decide you're going to want to be on right now is Duke. So there are a number of good legs you could put them in. Like you said, with Trey Savage. You got Brody Breck going tomorrow, Carter Holton, and Vandy. It's going to be, you're going to have your options if you want to put them in a two-legger.
I think so as well. This is something I'd be looking to put Duke in. I don't have them officially in a parlay at the moment, but I've only got 4 plays on my card. I wanted to get your opinion and see, maybe what else is worth adding. It's weird because we don't have some of the marquee games that I want just yet with Arkansas/Auburn, Mississippi State/A&M, and Wake/Louisville with Chase Burns going tomorrow. So, over the course of tonight and tomorrow, we're going to get some more plays added to my card. It's also worth noting that this is a 1:30 p.m. Eastern time, so we're going to have an early start. So make sure you get your plays in. It is not a later start. So just want to give everybody a heads up there. How about our guy Wags coming in with a little comment piece? Appreciate the info and leans in the sport with not much coverage. Best of luck in this weekend series. Wags, you too, my friend. Appreciate the love. And, we got to keep racking up winners. We got to build on a really good Thursday night. So let's keep it moving here. This is a game that I don't have currently anything on the card, but I'm interested to hear what you have to say with the Alabama Crimson Tide coming off a nice series win at home against Tennessee last week, at Georgia, who got slapped silly by Kentucky. The Crimson Tide opened at a minus 120 favorite. So it was almost a pick 'em until some steam came in on Alabama. You got Ben Hess going for the Crimson Tide against probably Charlie Goldstein for Georgia. Do you think Georgia gets back to business after being swept, or is Alabama with Ben Hess just too good and too good of a price?
Yeah, not in this opener. I'm part of the crowd that grabbed this minus 120 here at open. And you said it right there. It comes down to the pitching in this matchup. It's going to be Ben Hess against Goldstein. And then after Goldstein, this Georgia bullpen that they imploded multiple times last week against the Kentucky lineup. That is not comparable to the Crimson Tide. Essentially, this is a matchup where Hess was definitely underpriced at open. And even 140 is still a good price to me. Just given, I know Georgia's lineup deserves a lot of respect here, but the old saying goes is good pitching beats good hitting. And the good pitching is on the Tide side here.
Yeah, I'm not really sure if I'm going anywhere for the Friday game. I got to be honest, Georgia really left a bad taste in my mouth. I wasn't expecting them to sweep Kentucky. I was on them last Friday, and they were up 4-0 until they allowed basically, I think, a 16-4 run in favor of Kentucky. Their pitching imploded, and then their hitting was not getting it done in situational moments to kind of get back in the game. I don't know here, man. It wouldn't surprise me to see Alabama sweep them. There was a lot of hype on Georgia coming into conference play. They were playing lights out. Their pitching was improving. Their hitting was one of the best lineups in the country. But this scares me because this is, on paper, this is Ben Hess all day. Ben Hess has been really good this year. And this is a lineup, even as good as Georgia, where we could see Hess come in and dot them. But considering how good it is, it feels like a little bit of a letdown spot for me. I'm not sure if I'm playing anything here. This, to me, is one where I think Alabama should take the series. And by the way, this is something that I've been talking about since before the season started, and none of the sports books have obliged me, even though DraftKings told me they would. This is the kind of series where I want a series price. I would take Alabama on the series price if there was one that existed. I think they'll probably win 2 out of 3, but the Friday night, even with Hess, I'm worried here because Georgia just got swept, and I don't know, man. This lineup can explode at any given moment. It just takes one bad pitch for the Bulldogs to completely blow it out of the water. So for me right now, it's a hold. I'm going to wait and see how high this line goes tomorrow before opening pitch. Take me to this Ole Miss Rebels at Tennessee Volunteers game. The Vols are laying a big -238 at the moment. Doug, we're not going to lay 238 with probably A.J. Causey. I don't know if A.J. Russell's going to be on the mound for this one yet. TBD on when he's coming back. But Ole Miss has looked really good. Just got done sweeping South Carolina. Is Tennessee a parlay leg for you, or are you looking to maybe get Ole Miss on the run line? Where are you going with this
one? Right now, I'm honestly not 100% sure on what angle I want to take here. Causey, as you mentioned, he's deserving of this Friday night spot. You know, he's been everything they've needed. You know, outpitched Drew Ream in the last series against Bama. And this Tennessee lineup is deep. They're dangerous every inning here. And while the Rebels were definitely underrated in their last series, they're definitely, I wouldn't say they're getting any more respect here, but at least now we know what they're capable of. However, I'm really undecided of how to play this at the moment. It might have to get to a run line of maybe even 3.5 here, because the Vols lineup can open this up, especially against the bullpen.
Yeah, so I'm putting Tennessee in a parlay. I think whether it's Causey or it's Russell, Friday night at home at Lindsey Nelson Stadium, they just lost a series that they probably should have won at Bama. Ole Miss has played well. Give them credit. I didn't think they were going to be that good coming into the year, and I still have my reservations. But this is a Tennessee spot for me. I would look at playing the Vols in a parlay. I would be surprised if the Vols don't win the series, and I think we could be getting a 3-0 sweeperoo for the Vols to, settle themselves back in, get back in our good graces. It wouldn't surprise me to see Ole Miss cover like a 3.5 run line, but I think the best way to go about this is to put Tennessee in a parlay leg because, this is one that they got to have. They can't drop a Friday night at home spot. I think this is their home opener in conference play to Ole Miss. They need this. So I think it's a fair point to put them in a parlay leg because this has just got screaming them all over the Volunteers. Let's go to ECU. The Pirates are not that big of a favorite with the guy like Trey Savage on the mound. At the UTSA Roadrunners getting 154 at home. Guys, it's Trey Savage Day. We're talking a lot about Chase Burns and Hagen Smith lately, but you can make a case. The only pitcher better than Savage has been Smith and Burns. I think Savage, who's been just racking up 10 Ks over 6 shutout innings, 6 innings, 1 run every single time out, is deserving of this number. I would play -200 ECU, but I'm actually putting them in a parlay as well. I have them with a team that we haven't touched on yet. But are you laying this outright, Doug, or are you going to put this in a parlay as well?
Yeah, I'm weighing it outright because, as you mentioned, Trey Savage Day, also known as Win Day for the ECU Pirates here. I mean, he's been, as you said, just arguably, one of the most dominant pitchers. He's in that echelon with Smith and Burns right there. And against UTSA, this price is too short, even at minus 200. Take your half a unit and put it in your pocket as a win here if you want to lay them straight up. But they're a great parlay piece as well.
I agree. I think I might add ECU minus 200. I'm a little surprised. I feel like this week a lot of the home underdogs, it's strange because they're not as big of underdogs as they probably should be, which sometimes scares me because, is there a trap going on? You kind of saw it with Auburn tonight. They were a relatively short dog at home against maybe the best pitcher in the country. That is the only thing that concerns me. But, in situations like this, you got to back the Friday night horses. Savage has been elite. He's been lights out. This is a guy that I think if he keeps pitching this way, can get his way into the top 12, maybe top 15. I've talked about this many times over the last few months. I think Savage is a great pick for the Mets at number 19, in desperate need of a true ace. Savage is definitely in play to be the third arm off the board, although I would imagine he's maybe more so the fourth, because I don't know if Brody Breck is gonna go after him, but ECU minus 200 is a fair play for us laying it. And I do think in a parlay, the Pirates are a great spot as well. This one's a little bit more interesting. We have a team that just swept their opponent at home versus a team that just got swept on the road. That's the Vanderbilt Commodores at the South Carolina Gamecocks. Carter Holton has been much better over the last couple outings. I played Vandy at minus 130. I thought it was way too short. And I wasn't big on Vanderbilt coming into the year. And quite frankly, I'm still not. But they're hot right now. And South Carolina is trending downwards. I'm not liking what I'm seeing, mainly from their offense. Doug, the pitching has been fine, but the hitting has not been good. So with the stable of arms like Vanderbilt, when they decide to show up, which is usually more times than not, it's a tough ask for opposing offenses, especially ones that's been struggling. Are you laying out to 160 with Vanderbilt?
Yeah, I would play it up to 160. I was with you getting them at minus 130 here, and I have the same exact thought process. South Carolina's bats, while they have potential, the consistency hasn't been there. And they're going to face Carter Holton, who's been fantastic thus far. And while Eli Jones going for South Carolina definitely deserves some respect, this Vandy lineup has found ways to tick and tack their way through a lot of weekend series here. There'll be times where they're quiet for a few innings and then they'll explode. And that's what is really going to get them over here tonight, because they really don't need to give Holton that much support, in my opinion.
I think this is a spot where we could see a classic Friday night under. Given the prowess that Vanderbilt showed on offense, and they took it to Auburn last weekend, I could actually see this total open up around 12.5, maybe even 13. I don't think it'll open up lower than 11.5. So I would look at maybe going under here as well. I do like Vanderbilt. South Carolina's offense, while it is due, and you have stars like Ethan Petrie, you have a stud in Cole Messina, you have a really good bat in Gavin Casas, they need to prove it. They have not done so thus far. Their bats were quiet against Clemson. Their bats were quiet against Vanderbilt, Ole Miss last weekend. So for me, I don't really see South Carolina getting right here against Carter Holton, especially if he's on. Maybe if Holton has one of those outings where he's not sharp and he starts giving out free passes, then it could happen. But I think Vanderbilt is the play on the money line. And if we're getting a 12 or a 12.5, I think the under's in play. I don't know if I see this game getting out past 11, in my opinion. I see Vanderbilt maybe winning this game something along the lines of 7-2, 8-3. I just don't know if South Carolina's offense is getting right here. So is your under cutoff there as well with me?
Yeah, I definitely like that look. You said 12.5 would be where you think it's going to open up. Honestly, even 11.5 there sounds good to me. You know, this Vandy bullpen has been electric as well, and they're going to be well rested for the first game of this series. They should definitely, if they get out ahead early, they're going to hold the Gamecocks down, in my opinion, too.
Fair point. So Vanderbilt money line and the under here, if we're even getting 11.5 or bigger. If it's 10.5 or if it's 10.5, I think I'm staying away. I think 11 is the absolute drop dead lowest where I would play the under. That's just my opinion. This game coming up here, DZ, I have no play in. I want no part of. It's two Big 12 teams that are not playing to the potential that people thought they might have been coming into the year. It's the TCU Horned Frogs at the Oklahoma State Cowboys. This is a pick 'em. Given the offensive talent and what's supposed to be the pitching talent for the Frogs, this is a spot where I feel like they should be at least minus 140, even on the road. I think it still should be Peyton Tolley throwing. I think he was pretty solid last weekend against Oklahoma. But, you know, the Frogs just got swept by the Sooners, and give them credit, but I don't think the Sooners are anything close to a team that we should be worried about. The Cowboys, I think, are throwing Colton Atkinson. He's actually been lights out. This kid's allowed, I think, only 2 or 3 earned runs all year. Do you have an edge on this one?
It's funny that you explained how you looked at it, and you're like, why is TCU not more favored here? And that's exactly what I said to myself. And then I started looking at it, and I was like, yeah, I like Peyton Tolley here. And yeah, I like Atkinson. And then I looked at the offenses. The point separates these two lineups in WRC+. So they're almost mirror images for this matchup, and it explains the line. And honestly, I'm also not interested in taking this, what really is a coin flip, and while it shouldn't be based off of what we should expect out of TCU.
I'll say this. If one team gets steamed, and I'll be honest, I put TCU on my no bet list. TCU's on my shit list. They're up there with Iowa and a couple other teams. I might be inclined to fire away on whichever team ends up becoming the dog. Say TCU gets steamed and they get out to minus 150 come game time. I might be looking at something along the lines of an Oklahoma State run line plus 1.5 at home. They probably have the pitching advantage if it is indeed Atkinson. And their offense has enough to where they can keep this one close. And the Horned Frogs have been a disaster. You thought last week at home against Oklahoma would have been the series where they get right after losing to Kansas the week before. I would probably be inclined to take whichever team ends up becoming an underdog if it's somewhat meaningful. And even then, it would still be a likely run line play. This could end up being an under game for all we know, but these are two volatile teams that I think at the moment I want absolutely no part of. It's not very appealing to me. Maybe there's people out there that are saying, oh, you know, TCU, it's got to happen. They got to get back right because this is a team that should be in the College World Series here. And this is one of my preseason Final 8 teams. At some point, it's got to happen, right? Maybe, but maybe it's not this week. So I think we need a real wait and see approach with the Horned Frogs until I get back in bed with them, because they have showed me nothing to evoke any confidence whatsoever. This is one where I really like Dallas Baptist at Sam Houston. This is maybe the most underrated matchup of Friday's slate. DBU's got Ryan Johnson going. The kid has been shoving all season long against Sam Houston, who is one of the peskiest mid-majors in the game. They came close to beating A&M last week in the midweek, just fell short 8-7. The Bearcats can really give the best teams in the country a lot of problems. Do you think Sam Houston takes this one, or are we firing away on Dallas Baptist?
I have no play as of right now, but everything you just said is what makes this matchup so interesting. I mean, both you talked about Ryan Johnson on the mound, obviously giving DBU the edge, and that's pretty much played out into the price. But then both of these teams can swing it. You know, Sam Houston's not going to be out of this, especially later in the game. Right now, I might have to wait and see if this moves towards DBU and we get like a 2.5 run line, because I feel like Ryan Johnson's kind of at his ceiling with this matchup. Sam Houston does deserve some respect at home here.
I agree. I really do. So I actually put out Dallas Baptist in a parlay. I got to be honest. I don't think I'm laying 175. I don't. I think it would not surprise me to see Sam Houston win this series. It really wouldn't. I have reservations about Dallas Baptist. 1 week they look like, wow, they can make a run to Omaha. And then other weeks they're like, there they are. That's why, they're a mid-major program. That's why I have reservations about them. I think DBU is a good parlay leg because I think they're going to win outright. You got Ryan Johnson on the mound. Nick Wilson has been absolute nails out of the pen this year. He had one bad outing in San Diego a couple weeks ago where he blew, I think, the Friday night game with a 2-run lead in the top of the 9th. So I would attack that angle. But if DBU gets hammered, and we're seeing Sam Houston at 2.5 on the run line at home, I'm grabbing that. I think the Bearcats can absolutely keep this one close. They're going to have a shot to win. I really like the Bearcats. This is a team that can absolutely steal this series at home. I would expect Dallas Baptist to win outright tomorrow. But I think the Bearcats are going to keep this one tight. So that will be the approach I'm going with. I would wait, though, because if you like Sam Houston, even on the run line, it's not even out yet. But tomorrow when it comes out, I would keep an eye on what kind of steam the Patriots get, because chances are we're going to see this line get out to over $2 for DBU. At which point Sam Houston becomes an even more intriguing play, even on the run line. So if you have interest there, that's definitely how I would approach this game. Doug, we got a couple more here. This is probably the highlight of Friday night. It's the Florida Gators and LSU Tigers. This is the College World Series Finals rematch. Great weekend series. The LSU Tigers, we talked about this game last night. I thought LSU might open up at minus 160, 166. You got a big pitching edge with Luke Holman coming for a bounce back at home. This is the Tigers series opener or conference play opener, but they're out to 210. I understand it's Holman, but where are you going in terms of final price where you would lay it with LSU and Holman against Cade Fisher and Florida?
Yeah, no, it's not here at 210. Like, right before we got on here, I talked about how disappointed I was in seeing this price. I mean, yes, the pitching edge is there in Holman, and I was planning to smash the Tigers if we were getting anything, maybe 150, 160. I understand they need to be the clear favorite here, but at this price, No. Florida, despite their pitching struggles, the lineup is still there. The bullpen will be there, will be fresh on a Friday night. And I really think my only angle is to wait for a run line here. Or even if the Tigers get steamed more, I would put something small on the Gators money line here, because I just think even if they get into a hole against Holman, this lineup is showing that they're not out of it.
I have LSU in a parlay. And we'll get to the full card. I know I have a few teams in a parlay, but I really think LSU is going to bounce back on Friday. I said last week Luke Holman needed that Friday start at Mississippi State. He was not good. Credit to the Bulldogs. They are a tough team, but that kid did not look good at all, and he was lights out. I don't think he allowed an earned run before that Mississippi State at any point in the season. He was leading the league in strikeouts with 40. Tied with Ryan Prager before that happened, or not leading the league, but he was one of the league leaders, I should say. This is a bounce back. At home, even against the Gators lineup, I'm not laying 210, but LSU for me is a good parlay leg. I think if this gets out further, like 230, 240, and we're maybe even getting Florida at 2.5, I like it. Kate Fisher, it's weird because Fisher's ERA has been brutal, but his strikeout to walk ratio is great. I don't think he's walked more than 8 batters in the season. In this season, he's got over 40 Ks, and at some point, he's going to start dialing it in because he's shown the stuff to be somebody that could be a good Friday night starter as soon as he kind of fine tunes some things. So for me, I'm definitely putting LSU as an anchor in my money line parlay. Florida, I want to see if we're going to get a 2.5 on them. And let me tell you something. If LSU loses this game, they're going to lose the series for sure. Because I'm penciling in Sunday. That's Jack Cagg's day. He's on the mound. He's been great. I'm going to give Florida that edge on Sunday, and the line will be reflected the way it was last Sunday against Mississippi State. So it would really leave Saturday up in the air, where we'd see Liam Peterson of Florida and likely God damn it. Who's the Saturday guy for LSU right now? Doug, I'm drawing a blank. Jesus.
Same here. Hold on.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on who the Saturday guy is for LSU.
Gage Jump.
Gage Jump, the UCLA transfer. He's been okay. He got beat up a little bit last Saturday, but for me, I think that's really where it is. LSU knows they need this one. The problem is their pitching depth right now in the starting rotation outside of Holman is too hit and miss. So when you have Holman on the mound, you have to get a Friday night win. You cannot lose that game because you're in real danger of losing the series. And, I think LSU, even at this bloated price, it tells you something. And I'll say one more thing about this game with Holman, Doug. We've been getting Luke Holman strikeout props every Friday. Every single time he's on the mound since, I think, that Texas game against LeBaron Johnson, we're getting his K props. And maybe luckily, since last week he had a disappointment because they were starting to run his K props up high. They were starting at, I think, 8 or 9, and then they were running all the way up. And you were getting only plus 110 last week for 10 strikeouts, which is ridiculous. And strikeout props in college are not the same as MLB ones. So maybe we get a break there. But I would probably look at doing 10 or 11 Ks for Holman, possibly, if it's a good enough price. If, let's say, 10 strikeouts is in the plus 120, plus 130 territory, I might look at it. And if we're getting close to plus 200 on 11, that's somewhere that I would consider as well. I think he probably gets at least 9. I'll talk about this if and when K props come out on him tomorrow of where I'm going. But just so everybody's aware, this is a Florida team that can strike out a lot. They have a lot of big swing and miss guys, and Holman has been known for his strikeouts, except for last week. So this is definitely a good approach for Luke Holman on Friday night. Last headlined game, the UC Santa Barbara Gauchos at the Cal Poly Mustangs. It's Friday night. Matt Ager, he's been great this season. 175 seems like a steal behind Matt Ager with the Gauchos absolutely rolling.
Yeah, I agree. I actually didn't even look at this game. That price is too low for Matt Ager. We've seen UCSB catch quite a bit of steam every Friday night. I believe you're going to see it again here. I mean, this should reach $2, and that's really where I will play it up to. Especially against Cal Poly, you have to treat Matt Ager, like the power conference ace that he really could be here. That's definitely where I'm looking. I miss this price, but I want to jump on it as soon as I can here.
The one concern with Ager is the walks. He's got 16 walks and only 25 and 2/3. The strikeout numbers aren't great. They're good, but they're not great. He's got 20 Ks and 25 and 2/3. But I mean, you look at it, he's played Campbell. He was okay against Campbell. 2 earned runs, 4 hits, 4 walks, 3 Ks. Oregon, he was great against Oregon. 6 1/3, no earned, 8 Ks, 2 walks. UConn, he was solid. 6 innings, 2 earned, which was a quality start, but he walked 4, struck out 5. And then last week against Long Beach State, he allowed 7 hits, 4 earned, 4 walks in only 5 innings. I like Matt Ager here. I like UC Santa Barbara. They're absolutely dominating. They've won every one of his starts except for the second one against Sacramento State when they were slumping a little bit. But now that they found their groove, I think 175 is fair. In my opinion, and your opinion, this should be $2 or more. So I'm going to add Santa Barbara straight up on my card. I'll tweet that out after the show. They are actually in a parlay with LSU. So LSU, Santa Barbara, 2-teamer is plus 131. You're backing 2 big dog pitchers with Ager and Luke Holman in favorable matchups. And, I think you got to get Santa Barbara, Doug, when you can at this price. If it starts getting past minus 190, then I think, I'm scared off a little bit. I feel like 175 is the cutoff because, I don't tend to enjoy laying these big prices with mid-major teams. And as good as Matt Ager is, it's not like we're laying it with Trey Savage. Like Trey Savage and Ryan Johnson are kind of ahead of the game right now over Ager in terms of the mid-major programs that you would lay with. Dallas Baptist can swing the bat and score some runs. So I think 175 is a good price. 180 is probably the absolute highest I will go in terms of a single leg play.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I just looked into Cal Poly's offense, and I'm a little bit more confident than you are. Cal Poly, 90 WRC plus, which is 10 points below nation average. They have an ISO of 0.091. That's horrendous. They have no pop. I really don't see much threat to Ager here. I mean, like you said, obviously it's going to be his own wrongdoing if this does go wrong. But given his opposition here, this is a price that needs to be hit hard right now.
Yeah,
it's surprising almost.
I agree. Again, this has kind of been the common theme. It's a team that is on the road in a conference matchup that we would expect to be a bigger price. And we've went over several games where that's the case, where we're a little befuddled on why the home team is not as big of an underdog as they should be. I don't know if there's anything to that, but I do like this 175. So let's add it to the card. I'm feeling pretty good about it. And let's fire away. I think this is going to be a good start here for us on Friday. But before we get out of here, is there any other games that you wanted to talk about? Maybe any big underdogs that we didn't touch on?
Yeah, this team is not a big underdog, but they're a very interesting underdog in K-State. Let me see if their price has moved. I was actually just pulling it up so I could bet UCSB. I want to get that right now. Where is K-State? Oh, they got steamed the other way. Well, actually, they're at plus 135 right now against Houston. And I know their pitching is a bit suspect, but this lineup is legit. It's as legit as it comes. They have a WRC plus of 130. And honestly, Houston's best pitcher to me is not going on Friday nights for them. I really like Jekyll on Saturdays. So I think this is a spot to back K-State here to pour it on throughout the game offensively, even if their pitching falters.
What's the pitching matchup here? Because Jackson Jelkin, who I agree with you is probably their best arm, is not going tomorrow.
Yeah, he's their Saturday guy. That's what I mean. He's their best arm, and he's not their Friday night guy.
Let's see what the pitching matchup is.
Last weekend it was Kyle Lacamento, and then for K-State, it'll likely be Josh Winthrop.
This is the problem with me with Kansas State. And again, Kansas State is another team that was in my preseason finally. I felt like this was going to be one of the sleeper teams because this year was going to be a lot of parity. That was the word. That was my key word of the offseason was parity. But for me, I feel like Kansas State is still kind of finding themselves during this awkward stage of they look really good. They look like the team that could make a run, but then they just have these disappearances. And they're playing a lot with their rotation. That's a little bit concerning for me because, Owen Barama was supposed to be their Friday guy, and he's not looked like somebody that's capable of being a Friday night guy in the Big 12 at the moment. He's scheduled to go Sunday. Does it worry you at all with the mix and match rotation they have going?
Yeah, I'll make sure I wasn't muted. Yeah, like I said, the pitching is definitely a concern. I'm not saying that, this is like a full unit underdog type play, especially with them being out to 135 now. This is kind of where I'm expecting K-State's lineup to really keep them in it and try to mash this out late. Like I said, Houston's starter he's not their best guy. And that whole staff is going to have to deal with a potent lineup for 9 innings. So I think they're live. That's definitely how I would describe it here.
I think what I'm going to do is wait on this game because if they've already gotten steam the other way, like Houston was, I think, minus 135 at home, and they're out to minus 175. There's a real shot that they're going to keep going, which would make K-State a bigger underdog. I don't know. I have to do a little bit more research into this game before I fully commit. But, Kansas State is definitely a team that could take this series for sure. I like the Wildcats a lot. So, I'm going to do a little bit more research. It's a 7:30 tomorrow night Eastern time. So we're going to have a lot of time between now and then to really assess what could be a good play there. For sure. K-State's on the radar. Let me ask you about where was it? Sorry. Where was it? What about Georgia Tech at North Carolina? That's an 11:30 start tomorrow. You feeling any love for the Yellow Jackets?
Yeah, I definitely took a second look at that line as well, especially since last week Folger Boas got blown up against Miami. And we know this Georgia Tech lineup can swing it. I might look towards an over, though it might be very high. We might see something in the 14s, 15s. But both of these lineups can get there. It depends on what version of Folger Boas we get from North Carolina, because he's looked solid, but then you saw him get absolutely rocked by Miami last weekend.
Yeah, this is the first game of the Friday slate. This is an 11:30 a.m. start time. So I really do think Georgia Tech is live here. They had a great series last weekend against NC State. I don't know if they swept them, but I think they took it for sure. So I'll be looking at them. Would you lay 180 with Virginia at Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I was looking at that too. That is an interesting price. I'd have to look into Pittsburgh's pitching. I know Pittsburgh's offense is definitely a little inflated by playing in that Vegas early season tournament. You know, they were part of that tournament where there were just ungodly totals and extremely high numbers. And, you know, while they are at home, Virginia's head and shoulders, especially on a Friday here. But the Panthers can't be overlooked. However, like I said, that's a matchup where I'm gonna look into the Panthers pitching before I take Virginia here.
Fair point. I think one more that I'm looking at would be where'd you go? Sorry, my apologies. I just tried to find it. Yeah, here we go. Arizona plus 145 with Jackson Kent going, who has been phenomenal at the Oregon Ducks. Ducks are minus 190. Zona's plus 145. Doug, I can't get on the right side of Arizona this year. Every time I bet them, they lose. Every time I bet against them, they win. This is a great spot for Jackson Kent, who's been, like I said, he's been phenomenal. This kid is really keeping Arizona in every Friday night game, even if they don't win. Would you take Zona? Would you take a shot here with them getting such a big price?
Yeah, this was the game I was just about to ask you about. I was pulling it up myself. I was going to bring this up next. Yeah, I agree with what you said. Arizona's been, like you said, I've been on the wrong side of them already too, and it's kind of swayed how I view them. But Jackson Kent's their guy, you know, and he's going to give them the best shot to get it going here in Oregon. And I'm willing to take this price, but as we're seeing here, it might be best to wait. You know,
yeah,
we definitely this is a late game, correct? Right? This is
8:05.
Yeah, 8:05 Eastern. So this number has a long time to get even better if you want to take Arizona here.
I agree. You know, there are teams that just keep letting you down, and Arizona has definitely been one of those for me. But, you know, the thing is, sometimes there's a certain point you reach where you're just done with a team, at least for a while. But in a case where we're handicapping this the way we do, and we see a good value on the Zona money line, who's getting way too big of a price. At a team like Oregon, who's solid, but they're not that good, I'm not scared of Oregon's pitching. I don't think their offense is anything to be worried about either. This is definitely a game where I could see Jackson Kent go out there, throw 6 innings, 1 earned run. And he leaves with Arizona having a 5-1 lead. Now, what does the bullpen do is a completely different question because they've been a problem. But I think you're right. We should have another case here where we're going to wait and see. We have till 8 o'clock Eastern tomorrow to figure out what kind of number Arizona could get. And listen, if we're going to see Zona getting 160 or 170, it's too big for a pitcher of Jackson Kent's caliber. So definitely would look to fire on them, but let's wait and see where it ends up. Doug, that'll do it for us. I'm going to give out my full Friday card as of right now. It's going to be Duke money line, Vandy money line, parlay with ECU Tennessee, parlay with LSU UCSB, and then I'm going to lay the 175 with Santa Barbara. I typically don't like playing a team straight when I also have them in a parlay, but I feel good about Santa Barbara. You convinced me enough to lay this 175 as well as Matt Ager. We really appreciate everybody for joining tonight. It was a great show. We got a lot of games, and unfortunately, we won't be getting the Arkansas price for tomorrow, as well as Mississippi State and Texas A&M and Wake Forest with Chase Burns. But before we log off, let me say this. Chase Burns is another strikeout guy that they've added. He's got 14 and 13 his last 2 starts. So if you can find Chase Burns K-props and you have to only get even money for 10 strikeouts, take it. He might strike out another 14 tomorrow against Louisville. And I would seriously look at Mississippi State. If you're getting anything north of plus 150, I think tomorrow is where they bounce back against A&M, who they still took them down to the wire. A&M only won 6-3, and they needed at a road dog in conference play. But Doug, really appreciate the time. Thank you everybody for joining. And we'll see you again tomorrow.